Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to another Wednesday morning here in Philadelphia. It's a fine Wednesday morning, a little hazy, sunny but hazy, and looks like it's gonna go up into the low 80s today. So uh, get your t-shirts on. Um, we're coming to you live as we do every Wednesday morning. I'm your host, James Jackson. Welcome to the Coffee Break Chat. Executive producer, Light Thief Productions, he, they pronouns. And we got a good show for you today. So today we are going to be talking about, if I can pull it up, we're going to be talking about no contract, no stack. Labor wins, draws, and losses. This has to do with the Nabisco strike, which just ended, and the IATSE strike, which is pending. Um, there may be a national IATSE strike having to do with uh, digital productions. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the housing market and stocks, how a Chinese company can ruin your day. And we're going to talk a little bit about the EIDL and what that has to do with the current market. But first up, we have our special guests. We have JK from the Philadelphia Unnamed Film Festival, and we have Aaron Michael Bartuska from For Roger. And let me bring them up on screen. Good morning, fellas. And if you could please introduce yourselves, your pronouns, and what it is you do, starting with Aaron.
Hi, I'm Aaron, he, him pronouns. I am the writer, co-writer and director of the film For Roger that's premiering at Philadelphia Unnamed Film Festival, which JK has a big part in. And yeah, just hoping to keep making films from this point on. Just graduated college a little bit ago, and now I'm out in the real world. So we'll see what happens.
Wow, you're
Awesome.
such a young man. You're such a young man, Aaron. I am JK. I have worked for the last 3+ years with the Philadelphia Unnamed Film Festival Puff, which is going to be coming up this weekend, actually, or 2 weekends, excuse me, starting on the 28th at the Theater Exile. And I'm the head features programmer and the jack of all trades host. And it's, I guess, he and him for the pronouns.
Awesome. Welcome, guys. And so,
Thank you.
Jay, tell us a little bit about Puff. What can we expect? Is it all at Theater Exile?
That's a great
What's going
question.
on?
That's a great question with it, because now with the way the pandemic has shifted so much of how we see media and content, we're lucky to be back. Yes, we'll be at the Theater Exile in Philly, and it's wonderful because we're going to have the entire presentation there starting Wednesday night with the pre-puff and working our way through to Saturday night, and we've got a great lineup. You know, passes are available through the Film Freeway. You'll get a chance to see all the content going to be available. But yeah, Puff has been an organization that has been around. This is, I believe, Puff 6. I've only been with a few of them, but they established a platform in Philadelphia, a niche that was needed to be filled for really unusual cinema. Unnamed being in the title, but it's horror, it's the bizarre aspect, it's avant-garde, it's sci-fi, it's local filmmakers, it's really unique stories that weave in and out when it comes to a lot of genre storytelling. And we've been doing it for a while now, and each year gets better and better. Even, James, with the pandemic last year, Puff continued to be a force for a lot of independent filmmakers and getting their visions out there, usually at the end of September into early October in Philadelphia.
Awesome. So I have a lot of filmmakers who are fans. I'm a filmmaker myself. Um, how do independent filmmakers who have a piece that's in development or getting finished soon, how do we get involved? Where do we submit? What do we need to know about Puff?
Well, it's a great question. I would say first and foremost, if you're a filmmaker in the Philadelphia area, And it's going to kick off, this Wednesday or next one or 2 Wednesdays from now on the 29th. I'm looking at my computer, making sure I got the right date when it comes to it, but attend. That's the first thing I would say for any sort of filmmaker before you decide to submit in a project. Attend the festival and network and get to know people, because on Film Freeway, you can submit into so many different festivals, but you got to make sure it's the right festival for you as a filmmaker. And one of the things that, I love about Puff is how welcoming it is for filmmakers, for how incredible it is to be able to have their visions in front of so many unique eyes. So going through Film Freeway is the primary portal to be able to submit it in. But heading to an event like a Puff, James, is something that you can go ahead and get feedback and amass people around you, that support system, to go ahead and show your work and make sure it's ready to go to a film festival. And I know from Aaron's perspective, and he can talk to this more when his turn comes up, but giving an opportunity for the festivals to play your work, I think, is so important. So, getting it out there in front of as many eyes as you can is critical, and through Film Freeway is the best way to do it.
Awesome. So, Aaron, tell us a little bit about directing, producing. What did you do for your piece?
Well, yeah. So I was the director of this piece, and basically it was my senior project for college, but I just wanted to make a feature that I could hopefully do something with once I was out of college, because I literally graduated like as before we had even edited this. And yeah, I just got together all the resources, friends, money I could, without doing any crowdfunding or anything. I didn't want to use that avenue yet, but just whatever I had already available to me, got that all together, and just made this kind of horror drama that implements aspects of found footage, and yeah, just really a big collaborative effort from me and a lot of my peers. We really just, well, they all got together with me and kind of trusted me to make whatever this was. I kind of asked them to go out to a cabin in the woods and just like kind of trust that I knew what I was doing. And a lot of them did, and it seems to be turning out well. At least Puff has a lot of faith in it, so very happy about that. And yeah, I'm excited for people to see it. I'm excited for people to come out.
Awesome. Um, sorry, 1 second. Get that there. There you go. Sorry, you're back on screen. So what was it like? I not everybody has the college experience of, directing a piece, bringing it out to a festival. Some folks just like me do it, just because we like it. And rather than going to college for it, but yeah, I've been doing this for so long, and I'm sure college provided you an avenue to get through this process a little bit quicker. What has it been like, developing a piece from scratch and then submitting it to a film festival?
It's been a wholly different experience than what I'm used to, because I usually am the same avenue as you. I like to just shoot things and just like put them up, and whoever sees it, and we just like discuss it, whatever. And usually don't go through this whole process of trying to get it out to festivals and all this. But I had spent so much time with this project in particular and just put so much of myself into it. I think I came up with the initial idea for this early 2019 or late 2018. So it's been a while. And then we shot summer of 2019 and in October as well. And so it's just been a while that we've been trying to get this thing out there. And I felt like I owed it to the cast and the crew a little bit to just like really put the effort into this one. But again, I'm very much so from the background of like, oh, I have an idea, let's go shoot it and then put it on the internet tonight. And then whoever sees it, that's awesome. But we're not going to try to like, get this on any big screens or anything. Um, and really the only reason I was able to do this film is because, again, the resources provided to me by Drexel. I understand that a lot of people don't have access to those. And so I feel very lucky and privileged to have had that support in a lot of ways. And I think that also boosted the project a little bit, just having some people behind it and having the resources to um, push it to that next level of seeming like a more professional project, more so than the ones that I shot on my iPhone back in the day. So yeah, it was an interesting transition, but I've been enjoying it so far, and I'm glad. There's something equally nerve-wracking but also validating of being able to show it to big groups of people as opposed to my small circle. I think both are very valuable experiences, but I'm glad that I'm going through this new one right now.
What would
James,
you
if I
say? Yeah, go
can
ahead.
I jump in for one
Yeah,
second?
yeah, yeah. Jump
Because
in
it
whenever.
oh, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So it's really interesting listening to Aaron and you talk about that, because one of the reasons why, and we got over a dozen feature film submissions, in fact maybe more than that, through Film Freeway for this year's incarnation of Puff. But one of the things that stood out to us when it came to For Roger was the fact that this film, which focuses on a very emotional platform for the lead character, something we've all connected to at one point or another in our life, was more than just horror tropes brought together and the same old rehashing of the same old stories. You can look at all different kinds of home invasion types of projects. But to be honest, what Aaron did, his cast and his crew as well, was able to add layers to that storytelling, make it something that there was a human face to this very real horror and a really interesting twist in the final act. And it was something that we knew that once we saw it, we wanted it to be a part of Puff. It's going to be playing as one of the closing features on Saturday, October 2nd. And it's in the right place with Puff because it's a very unnamed, undefined kind of film that adds an emotional weight and elevates those horror tropes and really brings something. And to know that it was born of a student project, and just like you two guys, even at my age, I'm a film student currently at Montclair State University. So I'm putting through my work as well. It's very rewarding to be able to see it up on the screen. And in an era, James, where we live now, to basically put up movies on our iPhones, we tend to forget about film festivals or think it's not possible, but it very much is. And For Roger really shows that. And for the folks who are coming out in a couple of weeks on October 2nd, you're going to see a really incredible film.
Awesome. Well, what's the runtime of For Roger?
It's 88 minutes.
Smart.
Awesome. So yeah, I was just curious because if you talk to filmmakers, especially independent filmmakers, oftentimes getting a feature length or a 90-minute piece out can take nearly a lifetime. It feels like sometimes, but from script to final in just over 2 years seems like a really compressed timeline, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Um, I always like to encourage folks, if you are a filmmaker or artist, it's not about how urgently to get out your work. It's about how you feel about your work, and you get it out when you feel the time is right, and when you feel the work is complete. It don't I always say to folks that I'm working with, don't compromise on what your vision of the piece is just because it's some festival is coming up or this or that or the other thing. To release it when you feel comfortable with it. And there's no timeline on it. It can come out whenever it needs to come out. um but yeah, the two slightly I mean, so we're talking about a student project. You were supported with deadlines from school and stuff like that, and it got it out the door in just under what you said, about 2 years, like 2019 you had the idea.
Yeah, we started shooting June 2019, and then we started submitting June 2021. So
Yeah, so
Wow.
yeah, just under 2 years, and that that's a really ambitious timeline, I would say, and a lot of people can't make that sort of timeline, even, if filmmaking is their only job. Um, so, don't get discouraged if you're a filmmaker out there, and you have a piece that you've been sitting on, or a script that you've been working on for 5, 10 years, and it's just not done yet, and whatever. You produce it at your pace, and it'll get done. Uh,
Definitely. Yeah. There's so many times where I didn't even think I was ever going to release this. So 100%, if you have an idea that you think could work out, stick with it, because there's always going to be those times, I'm sure both of you can relate, where you're just like watching the thing that you made, or just like reading over your script or even your treatment, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? And then eventually,
what did I
yeah,
mean to write there? I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
exactly. And there were so many times. I mean, we got Will Denola did our score, and it's a fantastic score. And watching this film without the score was pretty scary. Not scary in the way that it was intended to be. Scary in like, oh no, I don't want to put this out there. Just because a score adds so much to a film, and we knew, like, I was shooting it with what I wanted in mind, but just watching it without that element, I was pretty worried, and could have easily stopped there and been like, no, let's like cut this down into like a short, or let's like just scrap it and I'll use some of it for a reel, but no, we stuck with it. A lot of support from my peers telling me like, you got to put it out there, and I was like, yeah, I do. So yeah, whatever that thing you're working on, stick with it 100%, because I did, and now it's showing at Puff and a couple other festivals, and it's getting rejected from a ton too, but the ones that it's getting into are really into it. So it's not going to be for everyone what you make, if you're staying true to yourself. So
That's
And
always
if
a hard part about festivals and art making in general, is the rejection cycle. All of us as artists face it. Not everybody likes what you produce, even if it's like, even the things that win the awards or are most critically acclaimed have people who detract from it, or who say that it's bad. So yeah, that rejection cycle can be a killer, but we, stick with it. You'll get it someplace. I have a film that I produced, that it's a sci-fi horror, and the first place it ever actually played to a public audience was on a boat stuck in the Atlantic Ocean, because we had gone to Antarctica, and I actually happened to have the final cut of the film with me, so I could play it for the other passengers, and so it'll get released somewhere.
yeah, and listening to you two guys, a lot of people feel the same exact way. It feels like their work's not good enough. It's a very small percentage that feels overconfident going into submitting for film festivals, but everyone pretty much is in the same boat. And we get in a lot of selections every year. We look for certain things that fit the mission statement, that fit the vibe, fit the themes for Puff. But most times it has nothing to do with the fact that it's not good enough work. It's the fact that it might just not fit into that festival. And Aaron's right. More times than not, unfortunately, you're going to get rejected rather than accept it when it comes to it. And as someone who's on both sides of that process, it's both frustrating as well as a great education in it. But another thing that tied in wonderful for Roger was that it was a locally based production. And that was something that really mattered to us, to be able to represent the local filmmakers who were a part of it, James. And this is something that Puff has been a huge supporter of over the years that it's been going throughout the different venues in Philadelphia. So to have for Roger and to have Aaron and his cast and crew come out and be a part of it, and for filmmakers to see the quality across the board. Because I'll tell you, James, there's some really, really, I'll keep the language from him, but really messed up films that are a part of Puff this year. You have wild and crazy stuff across the board. You have really disturbing and challenging stuff. you've got stuff that's just really, really out there. And that's what tough signifies. You go over to the Film Freeway for Philadelphia Unnamed Film Festival, you'll see the entire schedule of blocks and features. And, we're very proud of the lineup and very proud to have, again, For Roger be a part of it with Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, world premiere of it, right?
Yes, world premiere. World premiere.
Awesome, dude. Awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I would like to transition a little bit to some of our other topics. So, you're coming right out of college, Aaron, and I don't know what your experience has been with producing using union stagehands or using union electricians, that kind of thing. We just recently had the Nabisco strike. The Nabisco strike just ended not too long ago. The union that represents the Nabisco employees won concessions from the company that they were looking for. And so those workers are back on the line producing your favorite snacks. And so craft services folks everywhere are really happy because avoiding Nabisco snacks while shopping for craft services is difficult at best.
Craft is key, folks. Craft is key.
Yeah. You don't want to have a bad crafty. We just did a teaser shoot last 2 weekends ago, and I told the person that was shopping for our crafty, like, look, if you don't get the fruit gummy snacks, this isn't a film shoot. So I'm sure your cast and crew, Aaron, was like all independent contractors and fellow students. Um, as you look into the viability or the difficulty of producing things in the future, what if any thoughts have you had about how you select cast, how you select crew? How you interact with that kind of the wider industry that's out here. We have unions, we have IATSE, we have equity, we have SAG. They're a very key integral part to productions, both digital and independent and big studio stuff. So do you have anything in the pipeline? Are you thinking about making something else? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, so I was very fortunate with this project because we were all still in college. And since it was a senior project, a lot of people could just do it for an A. If you worked on one project as a department head, you got an A for senior project. So that wasn't really an issue for us with this specifically because that was basically the payment. You were getting a good grade in school. I think even the underclassmen that worked on it, if you mentioned that you were on it in a class, you could get like a bump up in a grade or something. So we kind of avoided that issue with this project, but it has been something I've been thinking, not even issue, but just like, that road hump for us in terms of budget. But it is something I've been thinking about going into the future. I'm even producing a short film right now. I don't have anything really creatively to do with it, but I'm producing it, and it's just like a low key set with two of my friends, Chris and Zach, and a bunch of their friends, and it's just like an action film. And they just asked me to come on and like oversee the production, throw some money at it. I was like, yeah, sure, of course. And we were on set, and one of the guys on set was just like, hey, I'm SAG, so like I need to be getting paid, right? And we were like, oh yeah, I guess so. And it was just kind of like this thing that we had to like then sit down and like address later, and kind of caught me off guard because I was like, oh, okay, we're really in this now. I'm gonna have to, and it's not, I want everyone to get paid for their work 100%. I want to be fair, and I guess with the pandemic and everything, and not really going out and being on film shoots since being out of college, that kind of escaped my mind a little. But now definitely, especially I want to be an executive producer at some point of just like small indie projects. So that's stuff that I've been looking into a lot, definitely in terms of, hiring and compensating fairly. The sound guy who did sound for this is still helping me out with this project, but for the next thing, he's like, I gotta charge my rate, and I'm like, I'm gonna find a way to pay you your rate because you're awesome. And it's just like coming up with things like that, like yeah, back when we made this, we were a group of friends trying to make a movie. Now we made that movie and it's getting seen, and that's great. But if we want to collaborate in the future, we're adults now. We got rent, we got bills, we got to figure out ways to make this more of a professional thing. So while I'm not as well versed in it as I should be yet, I'm definitely putting in the research and trying to get all that hammered out so I can get making the next thing as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean it is a challenge and there's a learning curve to it. On stagehand boards and stuff like that. I pay attention to and watch, the producer side of the discussion as well as the worker side of the discussion. Just to briefly recap what's going on, and I'll come back to you guys for additional comments. What's going on is, of course, during the pandemic, a lot of productions at the very beginning of the pandemic just shut down. There was no TV being filmed, there was no film being filmed. Crews were, desperately trying to find a way to work together, but in production, as I've said to many of the people who ask me how I'm doing, my whole job is bringing large numbers of people together in small spaces, and that's kind of exactly opposite what you need to do in COVID. So yeah, my whole industry, our whole industry, has been affected by this, and um, there's only so much that wearing masks, doing testing can avoid. Several productions tried to move forward, tried to create isolated pods or this or that or the other thing, and most of them shut down eventually after 2 or 3 weeks of production because somebody in the pod got COVID, or somebody related to the production got COVID, etc. So, all of these big studios started, searching out a way to create new content. And, as is usual, us indie content creators kind of did it for them. We figured out, if we keep our crew small, we shoot in, like a single space, or, a few very carefully controlled spaces, that we minimize our chance of spreading a deadly disease to any of our workers, and so the big guys kind of did the same thing. Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, and I can talk from not the perspective of Puff, but as a filmmaker, being in Montclair State, we shot within the frame, which has been lucky enough to play a lot of festivals over the last year. We shot it during the crux of the pandemic, and one of the things, James, that you bring up about the fact of a lot of people who make their profession and their livelihood working in productions, TV, film, and such, stage and such. You're right. There was a lot of people who were without jobs, and theaters went dark. Most sets went dark for quite a while. When we did the short, we weren't allowed to have SAG actors, actresses as part of the project. So what we had to do was we had to hire non-union for it when it came to it. And even more than that, one of the reasons why is because we were so safe during our production. We ended up shooting it outdoors. So we had ventilation, we had space. We ended up doing a small crew of like 4 people. And that includes the DP, myself, and 2 PAs, one handling sound. And we ended up bringing in the actress, and we only had her for one day because of the aspect of COVID. So it really changed and affected our production. But looking at the landscape from not only a filmmaking perspective, but a journalist as well as someone working in film festivals, the content is really interesting, James, because you're right. A lot of the content that the more major studios and platforms put out there was based on a lot of people being within doors trying to reinvent how to create content. And so not only did Hollywood and big budget take notes, but they pulled a lot of that content to fill the void. Now, if you look at the way, and I'll go to non-scripted TV, that went through for a good 6-month period before they said, okay, we need to get back into the studio. We need to be back on location, and we need to do it as safely as possible. And that's something now that you're seeing a reflection, and you'll see more next year with a lot of the TV shows and movies that are being put out. But the COVID regulations, as well as the fear that it created trying to make everyone safe, it really affected a lot of people. And a lot of people had to make life decisions because of it, James. So I can understand how you feel about that. And the fact of that now with things coming or reopening to a certain point, we have to reevaluate how we're going to do things. And it's going to change the entire ball game and structure, I would think, when it comes to union hands, when it comes to SAG and such.
Well, what's happening right now is IATSE, the International Union of Electrical Workers, who are technical. The IATSE union is primarily responsible for technical workers, so workers in low voltage, workers in film and television, workers on stage, and their they've been attempting to negotiate a fair contract with the major studios who've taken this indie model of small agile crews where people wear many hats, and they've really kind of preyed on it during the pandemic because you can only get so many people on set, right, and be COVID safe. So they've created these sets. Mandalorian was shot all on a soundstage, with a crew of 8, which if you know anything about television production, that's tiny. That's a tiny crew
insane.
For a special effects heavy major television production. So they took all of these things that the industry part of the industry has always been doing, and they are doing them with union members and union employees. And the unfortunate thing is that they also took what an indie budget can afford and said, okay, well, we can only afford that. So there's a difference between being Paramount and being Light Thief Productions. As
Right.
Light Thief Productions, I'm operating out of my own pocket. I have a bank account, and I have money, from things that we've done, for profit, but I'm operating out of my own pocket. Anything I get to do is because I literally earn the money doing something else. And all indie production is that. We come up with the money for crafty. We come up with the money for people's transpo and people to stay in hotels and to pay their rate, all out of our own pocket, out of our own effort. Whereas if you're Paramount, you literally have multi-billion-dollar investor groups that just throw money at you to make a movie. And
James, if I may jump in real quick, and I'm in the same boat as you with my production company that I set up when I went back to film school, because I wanted it to be by the books. And even though it was a student film, there was expenses coming out of my own pocket that were a part of it. And that's the reality of what it is when it comes to it. And listening to Aaron talk about the fact of struggling and trying to figure things out as he moves forward with it, that's something that a lot of students of his age in film school are learning right now. It's something that's not really taught a whole lot as well. The struggles of finance and distribution and promotion. for me, I've been involved in it for a long time in different capacities. But even big studios, though, they do have investors, but the problem is it was such an abrupt shutdown that it really affected them to a certain amount. I mean, they're always looking there. They're always picking the pocket of the indie filmmaker, trying to make it, work for, with the bottom line that is as small as possible. But the thing is that they were all affected with it. And it's going to be interesting to see on the other side how these big studios adapt to it. And I'll give you one quick example. Emily Bennett and Justin Brooks, who are based out of New York City, they were going to have their world premiere of their feature at Fantastic Fest, Alone with You. And Justin is a world-renowned DP. He travels the world. He does so much great work. Emily is an unbelievable filmmaker and talented artist and actress. But they shot basically a feature in their apartment for the most part, with very, very small cast and crew and strict COVID regulations, as far as from what I understand during that time. But they're professionals who are normally doing really, really well and booking work. So we all have to adjust. Even the big studios have to adjust when it comes to it. And that's going to be the real interesting challenge going forward with it.
Yeah, and the other challenge is how do these professional organizations in their contract negotiations deal with this, the fact that there is currently less money in our industry than there ever has been. There's less investment in the industry, and there's more demand for it than there ever has been. People want to get out. They want to watch things streaming. They want to watch things on their TV. They want to go back to theaters and watch things in the theater, whether that be, stage or screen. And how do these contract negotiations, move forward? Where do they go? So I have a lot of union member friends, and not to poo-poo their union membership, but I've been seeing a lot of, guessing as to whether or not, if there's a film and television strike, if there would be a strike of stage and indie at the same time, and the answer is no. There can't be. Most of the IATSE contracts actually say no strike while the contract is in effect. So yeah, stage productions are still going to go through, and any indie productions or event productions that have IATSE contracts are still going to go. Um, the if Unless IATSE is picketing the venue, and legitimately picketing the venue, then the IATSE employees that are on different productions that have a contract are obligated to fulfill that contract. Um, but we talk about, what the costs are, but also there's a benefit to these contract negotiations, the unions even existing in the first place. Lots of folks, always cite, we have a 5-day work week because of unions. We have a 40-hour max work week because of unions. And obviously, like here in the entertainment industry, we go over that constantly. Like we work 6 days or 7 days, or work 12-hour days with 2 hours of breaks or whatever. But that's all part of this negotiation too, because studios have been forcing those smaller crews to work longer hours to get things done because there's such a great demand. The benefits here, are for us as indie filmmakers, I think aspirational to some extent. When my production company hires people, we pay union rates. When I know what they are. That's a whole nother argument. That's a problem I have with our locals here in Philadelphia, is you guys should just publish your rates like they do in California, because if I know what your rates are, I can meet them. If I don't know what your rates are, you know, I have to rely on, intelligence and like getting information from people who don't want to give it. I'd rather just have the information. Anyway, but I pay union rates. I pay the same. Actually, non-union employees working on a contract that gets union rates get more take-home pay than union members do because all your benefit pay gets paid directly to you rather than going to your union. Um, but those benefits and those rates wouldn't exist without the union negotiations. And so I say unions are pretty necessary. And it's good that they're out there negotiating these things. It's just, it's unfortunate that we have to have that sort of situation, and there doesn't seem to be there there doesn't seem to be enough ethics taught in business in the business side of anything. Like, I don't know, Aaron, you can probably speak to your experience in college. Like, what did you learn in college about, like the business side of filmmaking, the making the numbers work?
Well, I will say that Drexel definitely, from what I've heard, is one of the better film programs in terms of teaching you at least the bare minimum of everything so that you.
My favorite before they shut down was Art Institute, followed closely by Drexel.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
just like I love a program that'll just like, okay, look, you might want to do this one thing, but you need to know everything, or else you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to work with other people, you know? And so we did go over all the business aspects of it. Not super in depth, but then again, it's better than not going over it at all. And they really did try to prep you for the real world and just like going out. I mean, because the reason I went to Drexel was day one, you got a camera in your hand, you're making stuff. You know, so many other colleges were, oh yeah, take all your core classes and then maybe halfway through sophomore year you'll be able to make something. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to make films. And so I think Drexel was great with that. I think that unfortunately we just like my year especially, I was so fortunate. I graduated December 2019. I graduated 2 terms early, and the rest of my peers in my year were set to graduate June 2020. And so I just missed the whole Zoom thing, and they all had to adjust to that. And also, so many of my classmates, I think there were 30 people in my year, and I was one of 5 who got to shoot their senior projects.
Wow.
Literally, I have friends who were taking the equipment out, and then like that horrible weekend in March or whenever it was, they were just like, we can't let you take this because we have to,
Yep.
shut down, and it was just heartbreaking. So I think that as much as Drexel did prepare us for the business aspect and everything, the world we weren't no one, it wasn't really fair because the world completely changed right when we were set to graduate. And even still, I keep in touch with so many of my friends, and it's just like so hard getting gigs as a freelancer. One of my friends was just posting the other day about like how he or one of his friends was working for a company that like they were trying to cut days to like 6-hour days, and the people up top were like, no way. And so they just kind of like started doing 6-hour days but clocking them as 10-hour days. And basically the content that because the whole excuse was that the higher ups were like, the quality is going to go down if you're shooting 6-hour days. There's no way you can get the same quality as a 12-hour day. So when they told them they were doing a 12-hour day and really doing a 6-hour day, they didn't have any complaints about the quality. It doesn't have to be as I feel like there's certain just like things that people stand by in our industry. Like, you need to work long days, and it's just, I think things can change with that.
I
uh
think things can change everywhere. This is a lot of the same arguments happen in the service industry, in restaurants and bars and whatnot, in hotel and customer service too. Like, you don't need 12-hour days. The customer isn't always right. Like, the the end of the day, the production is not the thing that needs the most attention. What needs the most attention? I have a new metric, by the way. I don't know if you guys, you guys probably didn't follow me before this, but I have our first child was just born 3 months ago, and um,
Congratulations.
thanks. But I have a new metric, which is if something needs more attention than a 3-month-old, that's probably something wrong there. Like, if my attention, if it needs to go to a project more than my 3-month-old, that's probably not, there's something wrong there. I need to figure out what, and we need to adjust.
That's a
Um,
fantastic metric.
yeah.
That's great. I did the same thing for my niece and nephew when they were born. I was like, yeah, if I can't like if I'm taking projects in and not seeing them, like I'm not doing this anymore.
Right,
I know
right.
that's different. That's very different than having a 3-year-old, but that's just how I like measured it in college too.
3 months, but yeah,
Pretty much.
the 3 month olds you not had. I don't know about you, Jay, but Aaron, I would assume you've not had a child yet since you didn't mention
Nope,
it.
not for me.
Fingers
No.
crossed.
If you've never had children, what you'll find out when or if you actually do have children is that from 0 to 3 months, it's a 24-hour a day job. They need your attention, or they need somebody's attention, and if you have a really great partner like I do, you can free yourself up for a couple hours a day and get things done. But yeah, it's a 24-hour job, and the attention is nonstop. And so if your job or your workplace, something that you're doing to earn money, unless it's something for yourself, I would say, like, you need to, if it needs more attention than a 3-month-old baby, then you probably are doing something wrong. I had I still taking jobs, still have clients, and one client was being so demanding of my time that I was like, yeah, no, I'm just not going to answer emails for a couple hours every day. And no, that's perfectly okay. Same thing with film production. Like I said, and it's kind of reframed my thought process about film production, because reapproaching this with both COVID concerns, and reapproaching film production from the perspective of you know, honoring everybody's time, making sure everybody is well taken care of, which is where the pay thing comes from, which is where following union rates and union rules as far as breaks comes from. Like, honoring everybody's time, making sure everybody is well taken care of is more important than getting a project out the door in a short amount of time. Um, at least I don't, like, we're all here making stuff to entertain people. It's not,
You're not having
maybe
fun making it. If people are like, if people are going crazy trying to make this thing that's literally for people to sit around and garner entertainment from, like you said, yeah, something's wrong there.
yeah.
Something like, yeah, there's going to be those high moments of stress, there's always going to be that, but like it should always be in service of like having a good time, making something everyone's passionate about, I
Yeah, I
think.
mean, there's onset arguments. There's always going to be creative differences, but if you're not, like you said, if you're not having fun doing it, why are you doing it?
Right. Right.
A lot of people, and I will say this because from a film festival perspective, most people are not getting paid to be able to sit back and watch the films and judge them and build these festivals, and that's something with it. You're right in what you're saying. It should be done more. It should be done smarter. And perhaps with this pandemic, it's a twofold situation. One, James, now people have to work even harder to get back to where it was, or figure out on the other side how to make it something that's more effective. And one of the big issues with
Oh,
that
I lost
is
your
is that
audio. Oh, I might have lost the audio. I'm sorry. Stand by. Sometimes I lose audio. It's not.
Okay.
It's okay. You can keep talking. My apologies.
Okay. So that's the tricky part with it. People who go into film, aren't going into it for necessarily the pleasure of putting something out there. They're doing it for the challenge of being able to put their vision up on the screen. And unfortunately, we're in an entire ocean of people who are trying to do that now. And the ability to get into a film fest is something that should be respected, because there's so many entries every single season that go into it. And because of that need, because of what people want, it becomes the thing that, yeah, we're going to work extra hard to make sure it gets out there. And, whether we're treated with respect or not, that's the question. And I think that goes, James, back to what you're talking about with union rates and how the union is handling it and how productions are respecting and what's the legality of it. And that's something that has to be at the root of it, has to be examined. So that way it flourishes out to the people that's there, and they're able to do a smarter and better job in getting the production done without killing themselves. It's really interesting because now with technology, there'll be plenty of things we pull forward with us. The aspect of Zoom and Skype, there is a thing called Skype still. The aspect of those platforms will go forward with us. How will they be utilized? Will the aspect of cameras, and Aaron talked about his cell phone and shooting movies with the cell phone. Well, I got news for you. The iPhone 13 that's coming out, I mean, what's how many megapixels is it now? How much, what's the lenses on that now? I mean, it's insane. And
I mean, I'm a Sony Ericsson fan, and let me tell you, like the Sony Ericsson, the pro level new Xperia has an HDMI input port
it's crazy,
right on it.
Right?
Full size HDMI input port, so that I can literally, I don't have to have a production van. I can just be, my on-site guys can just beam what I'm looking at right to me.
And that's one thing we're gonna have to look at is what we considered to be filmmaking before and what we consider to be filmmaking now. Because I'll tell you something, on the short film, I used an iPhone 11, I used the GoPro, and we used the Canon Mark D2 or 5D Mark II for it because we were only shooting in HD primarily. But as you go forward now, is it going to be worth it to hire a cinematographer with a big camera, or maybe shoot a scene on something like this where the quality may be comparable to it? That sounds a lot smarter to me. It may not be the best thing for people's careers, but guess what? If we reconfigure how we handle and make films, in the end, we should be able to find a balance point, I would think.
Yeah.
And I will also say, in terms of I think one of the things, just in terms of overall jobs, in terms of the film industry that came out of the pandemic, is people are a lot more comfortable setting personal boundaries and space between their work and their personal lives, which I think is such a valuable thing. I think the fact that we were all allowed to work from home for a little, kind of see what that felt like and realize, oh, a lot of this can be done within 9 to 5. It doesn't all have to be done. Not every meeting needs to be in person. I think that's really changing the landscape, especially in film. I think that a lot of pre-production and post-production does not need to be done in person anymore. I think
exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's opening. Yeah, it's closing some avenues, but I think it's opening a lot more avenues than it's closing. And my goal going forward, my personal goal, is to just like, whenever I'm asking people to help me on things I care about, and I'm trying to help people on things they care about. It should be a constant flow of just like people being passionate about what they're doing, and I'm never trying to invade personal space or anything. So I think if everyone in the industry and everyone in every industry just keeps in mind, don't call outside of your hours, don't unless it's pre-agreed to, let's just respect what we're doing. We're all here for each other, and we're all trying to do the same thing, which is make art and collaborate. So
I have a pet peeve that reminds me of, which is please, if you're going to if you're going to send an email, put a title that's relevant to the content. Please, don't make me open the whole email to figure out what it is that you need or want. I can, figure out how to summarize, please.
and that's one thing right there. And coming from a film student right now at Montclair State, one of the biggest struggles I have with it is there's not something that's cohesive and structured that I'm learning. And for me, being involved for a long time, it's a different story than about 95% of the current group of students that are there that are part of the film program. Because, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm not learning, James, exactly what you just said. That's something I was raised with. But the generation now isn't part of that. They, very much about the message they want to put out there. There's not formatting to the message. That heading can be anything they want rather than being focused because they feel it's important. Well, in film school, they're not teaching you the proper etiquette to be able to make it as effective as possible, at least in my experience so far. And that's something, again, going to the root and trying to reformat and go forward to make it the most effective process when it comes to creating a production of any level or size.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've always, like I said, before they went out of business, Art Institute, and closely followed by Drexel, one of the problems I've always had with filmmaking courses or course lines in collegiate work is that it concentrates on the creative. Um, but I don't think I have any educators who are part of my part of my audience. But just to say it out loud, I'll put it out there in the universe. The creative will take care of itself. Like we don't need, you need a little structure behind how to do reproducible creative, but we don't need to teach creative. We don't need to teach, yeah, art history is important so that you have a similar background to everyone else, but you don't need to teach whether something is good or bad. You need to teach how to create reproducible results by giving a framework that people work through. You need to teach, the basic business skills that help people do this work in the first place. And for indie filmmakers that are just approaching this, from the perspective of somebody who is just doing it on their own, never went to school, these are all important tasks for you to learn too. And I'm sure you've run across them. I'm sure, you will run across them if you haven't. Um, it's important to know, like how to get a business license, how to register an LLC,
Right.
how to have a business bank account, how to keep track of your taxes, et cetera, so on and so forth.
This is
Um,
exactly what I'm in the middle of trying to figure out.
Well,
right,
I will.
right.
I will say this, and that's one of the things. Again, Aaron, you brought up the fact of how we can go ahead and have meetings just like this on Zoom on when we're talking with you, James. And now there is so much out there now, and because of the pandemic, it's made the content and the learning curve even easier because there's programs that you would have never been able to be a part of that are available virtually online. Hell, you can take master classes with all these famous people and learn some things right away for what, $180 for an entire year. I mean, that's kind of on the extreme side of it, but you can go on YouTube in the same breath and learn how to pull focus, and you can learn how to get the LLC. Sites like LegalZoom, I've been with them forever, and both my LLCs have come through there, and it's been some of the easiest process I've ever done. So it's so crucial. And James, it's so not taught. Maybe you'll learn it in your final semester in film school, maybe, but it's stuff that's learned a lot on hand and stuff that filmmakers, most of them, struggle a great deal with if they're not involved with it every single waking moment when it comes to it. So Aaron, I can understand why you're in the process of it, but it's so crucial to learn.
Well, if anybody wants any advice, in those regards, feel free to reach out to me.
You
Yeah,
should definitely keep in contact, James.
I'm always available. I'll help people out with a little bit of advice here and there. I don't have a problem with that.
I can find you
It
at Tattooed
is.
Mom.
What's that?
I can find you at Tattooed Mom.
Oh, yeah, sometimes.
Good promotion.
Uh, yeah, no, this Tattooed Mom had released these T-shirts a couple of weeks ago, and I
Awesome.
finally get to wear it on screen without a baby covering it. So it is 1 after 11, so I do want to respect everybody's time and wrap up here. I'm gonna continue on and talk about what Evergrande, the Chinese real estate company, has to do with all of this. But first, I want to thank all of my guests. I want to thank both you, Jay and Aaron, just to for showing up and talking with me for the last hour. Really appreciate it, folks. If you're watching, you should go to Puff, go to the film festival and check it out. Check out the work of independent filmmaker artists like Aaron, like me, like other people. Um, and you get to see what's being made in Philadelphia and in the independent entertainment industry um, without having to hunt it down. It's been hunted down for you.
Yeah.
Um,
And James, if I may jump in real quick, first of all, thank you so much for being a part or for having us to be a part of your show. It's been absolutely fantastic. And thank you for an incredible discussion after we talked about Puff. And I just want to remind everyone it's going to happen in 2 weeks. In fact, 2 weeks from today, on the 29th, it kicks off with Free Puff and it runs through Saturday, October 2nd. And you can get tickets on the Film Freeway under Philadelphia Unnamed Film Festival. And Aaron's film, I believe, is sold out. So he's done some really good job when it comes to it. But there is 4 short blocks. There's multiple features. It's a great place at the Theater Exile. So hopefully you folks come on out. And James, thanks to you and Meg for giving us a chance to talk a little bit about it. And Aaron, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, thank you for having me, James, and thanks for the invite, Jay.
All right, thanks guys. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. We'll be glad to have you on again. Anytime you have anything else coming up. I'm gonna cut to just me on screen, and feel free to drop off the broadcast, or if you want to stick around and listen, feel free. I'm just gonna cover what the housing and real estate market has to do with all of this that we've been discussing. Um, and uh, and if you want to interject, feel free to jump in at any time. But just to kind of bring everything together, and also thank you to my viewers if you're still sticking around. These are really important, big, interesting topics, even though they're also small and local. Um, so what does Evergrande have to do with this? Evergrande is a Chinese real estate company. They purchase uh, buildings internationally, and lease them out to both corporations and individuals. Um, and they also build buildings. Almost never, when you invest in a building, do you just leave it sit. You make changes to it, and so that's what they do. They buy buildings, they get investors interested, they put some money into the building, and then they rent it out. Pay their investors back off of what they're earning. Um, how does a company like that end up having $300 billion in debt? Well, in this business of real estate investment, you don't often lay out much of your own cash. You lay out cash for a small percentage of the building's value, and then you find investors who you can pay back at market rate or better, rather than having a business loan. Business loans, if you've never gone after them, are usually slightly more expensive in interest and fees than, say, a normal person's home mortgage. And so you try and make yourself better off, earn a little bit more money by getting investors involved. Um, there's been over the course of the pandemic a lot of available capital. Governments all around the world freed up capital so that people could invest that capital and could make it, keep the wheels rolling, so to speak, even though there were huge parts of the economy in both um, in both service and in production that are really responsible for about 2/3 of the economies worldwide, that were just down and out. Like, you could not, in most countries, even leave your house for more than a couple hours a day through much of the pandemic until it was under control in those countries. It's not under control here, and there's questions as to why we're not doing the same thing, but we'll get into that later. Um, so Evergrande owes these investors money all the time. And that's fine, just so long as things are chugging along. If you have, you're building a new building, you're renting it out, you're remodeling it, whatever. So long as there's money coming in and out, everything's fine with the $300 billion debt load. You're servicing the debt, you're paying your investors, they're earning money, you're earning money, all good. Evergrande, like everybody else, is suffering from a little bit of availability of goods issue. Uh, you know, uh, just to bring it local, if you go out and order a couch today, they'll tell you that it takes 24 to 48 months to deliver it. That's 2 to 4 years for those who don't want to do the math. Um, and there's nothing that they can do to make it come faster. People are still ordering couches, but they're not getting delivered, and so the money isn't being collected, etc. So these supply chain issues affect everything. And for a company like Evergrande that operates on the flow of capital rather than operating on the assets that it holds, um, that's a big problem. When the supply chain starts to break down, they stop bringing in money. When they stop bringing in money, they can't service their debt. And when they can't service their debt, people start to call it in. So what does it have to do with IATSE, Nabisco, production in general? We in the United States have benefited from the fact that most of our elected officials are aware that our economy is small business based, that the majority of businesses in the United States are small business, sole proprietorships, or under 3 employees accounts for something like 80% of the small businesses out there. And then small businesses are classified as anything under 500 employees. So the other 20%, have from 3 to 500 employees, and those are things usually like restaurant groups. And knowing that, they made a lot of capital available through things like the EIDL, the emergency uh, the emergency loans that were given out by the SBA. So the EIDL has money in a pot, and like any other federal government program, if it doesn't get used, it goes back into the federal government's general budget, and then they can do whatever else they want with it. The Democrats have proposed a spending bill that is supposed to help the economy recover, but part of that spending bill is taking the money out of the EIDL that hasn't been spent, and putting it towards other things. This is neither a good nor a bad thing. The money is still getting spent. But for individuals and for small businesses, this is a moment to light a fire under your butt and really find out whether or not you qualify for an EIDL grant. EIDL, as part of the program, is giving up to $10,000 to businesses, including individuals and sole proprietors. That's independent contractors. Anybody who does business gets paid on a 1099. You can get a $10,000 grant. That's money that you don't have to pay back from the federal government to support your business, support your losses over the past 2 years of the pandemic. That $10,000 doesn't mean a lot to the federal government, but it means a ton to you. So if you are an independent contractor, if you are a small business, you should immediately start looking into the EIDL program, apply for your grant if you're eligible. The grants are for businesses that are homed in census tracts that are considered economically impacted zones. These are areas that the majority of people were below the poverty line in the census tract as of the last census in 2020. And there's maps available all over the place as far as whether or not you live in one of these census tracts. You can check on the SBA's website. There's also independent maps out there, like from the company Hello Skip, and other folks are out there that have this information available. I encourage you to go out, take a look at the information, find out if you qualify for this grant, and if you do, apply today. Because the bills that will take the money out of the grant program and put it into other things are in the pipeline, and they could be passed literally within the next week. So if your application isn't out there, if the money isn't spoken for, they'll just take the money and spend it on something else. And I would like to see all of my fellow entrepreneurial friends get the money that they deserve. This pandemic has been hard on all of us, and you would have earned this money if your industry was not affected by the pandemic. So it's the government's job to replace that money for you. So go and apply for an EIDL, emergency disaster loan. And if as part of that process, you will get a grant of $10,000 if you are in the census tract that qualifies. So, other than that, Evergrande taking a bath over the last couple of days has really affected economies worldwide and has caused our federal government, our Fed banking chair, to take a look at what we're spending towards supporting the economy, and has caused him to say that maybe we should put the brakes on some of this. I don't agree, but I'm not a Fed chair, so I don't have much opinion, much weight in that opinion. But if you're still being impacted as a business owner or as an independent contractor by the pandemic, I urge you to write a letter to your representatives, explain how the pandemic is still affecting you, how the economic shoring up that the federal government is doing has helped or hasn't helped or hasn't reached you yet. And if explain to them whether you think your industry, your business still needs support, or is still being impacted by the pandemic. Other than that, thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll be back next Wednesday with another coffee break chat. We'll have more guests for you, more hot topics, more things going on. And we really appreciate your tuning in. Consider supporting us. Some simple ways that you can support us for free are hitting the like button on Facebook or Twitter, subscribing to our Facebook or Twitter feeds, also YouTube, hitting the like button on YouTube, subscribing to us on YouTube, and just helping us get the word out there. Subscribing to us on Mobcrush also helps. And you can, subscribing to us on any of those places will both express your interest in content like ours and get our content out to more of your friends, and refer us to them. Also, if you would like to, toss money at it, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/lightthiefproductions. We have memberships for as little as $1 a month. As little as $5 a month gets you access to exclusive content that we don't share publicly. And you can see things like dailies from the film shoot that we just did last weekend. You can see upcoming events and ideas and programs, and you can vote and tell us, hey, this shot looks great. This shot looks less great. Why don't you use this one? You can interact with us on any level, including getting advice or getting more information about the topics that we discuss on the coffee break chat. Um, Let us know if you would like to subscribe, and we will come to you again next week, 10 a.m. Wednesday. Look forward to seeing you then.